Hi everyone, as I've been introduced, my name is Olga KHOMENKO. I'm co-founder of a company called Play2Max. Well, actually, a few words about us. We've been for 3 years already in HTML5 gaming market. We used to be called True Token, but this year we've had like rebranding, and now we are called Play2Max. What we actually do is we develop HTML5 games of different types, and I will show you a bit of examples at the end. At the moment, we have over 200 finished projects. From them, we have about 70 our own titles that we own and distribute. And at the moment, we are developing 5 to 7 new games each month. And all these games are developed with the help of our own framework that was developed 3 years ago, because at that time, there were no good solutions that would cover all our needs, so we had to do it from scratch. So but nowadays, if someone wants to do HTML5, I definitely recommend not to do this, not to do your framework from scratch, because there are a lot of good solutions, and I will tell you about this also. So I wouldn't be telling you just about the HTML5 development in general. I will tell you that if you want to re-monetize your game that you already have, you have a possibility to go to the new market, because HTML5 is quite young market, and it has a lot of advantages because of this. So actually, why HTML5? Just to give you an overview about mobile market itself, so they say that there are already 7 billion mobile users worldwide, and it is actually almost all the population of the world. Of course, from this figure, it's not all the smartphones and tablets that we got used to, but still there are a lot of old-fashioned phones. But yeah, this figure is growing, and it is definitely a good sign for us. And also, due to this, there are a lot of forecasts that mobile web will overcome the PC one by the end of 2015. So, yeah, wow. From all the users that own mobile phones, 61% they do play games on their phones. So they're not just calling, texting their friends, they do play. And so, of course, like general fact that we all know that at the moment we have a life on the go. We do not have much time to sit at home, relax, I don't know, play your PlayStation, because it's always you're running out of time. So that's why you have your mobile phone or your tablet, and you play while waiting in a queue, while you're somewhere in subway, or so on. Of course, HTML5 is a quite young technology, and it has its issues. There are several of them. For example, problems with code protection. As you know, HTML5 is markup, yeah, and everybody can open console and see what's happening on the page, and thus there are big problems with code protection on HTML5 market. But still, you need to remember that you have to minify, obfuscate your code to make it more difficult for pirates to get the code of your game. But still, as you all know, it is as for Flash games, for PC games, native applications. Still, if they want to steal your game, they will do it anyway. So yeah. Mobile devices limitations. At the moment, the gaming industry is so big and so growing, and everybody wants to play like the best game and so on, but not all of the mobile devices, not all of the tablets, they provide you with this ability, because some of them are still like Android 2.3, and a lot of people use it, and sometimes it causes difficulties for us to develop on HTML5, but I will tell you how to overcome this. Young markets, of course, it's from one point of view, it's a good sign that you have niche you can go to But young market also tells us that there are not so many established rules yet. There are some of them, but still it is a bit difficult to do all that you want, because you just don't know who to contact, you don't know where to go, how better would it be. There is not much statistics on this market as well, so it's just the figures that companies give us, but there is no like one big company who would collect all the statistics and tell us, hey, look, this is HTML5 market, and this figure means that, and so on. And of course, the lack of single standards for browsers, for devices, because it is especially for Android ones, because same manufacturer can have different browser types on different devices. For example, native browser in Samsung Galaxy Tab is totally different than on Samsung Galaxy S2, for example, and you have to remember that, because it causes a lot of problems to make the game, make the code standard for all the devices you want to cover. But of course, I wouldn't be standing here if the technology wouldn't have its strengths. So the first and the major strengths of HTML5 is that it is cross-platform. So you do it once and you cover most of the popular devices nowadays. Even so, starting with desktop, phones, tablets, TVs. Yeah, we did some games to smart TV, and now even watches. If you know, Tizen has launched a kind of competition in which different applications are participating to do this stuff for the watch called Samsung Gear. Yeah, so it's like you can play games on watches, and we have jokes that soon we'll be doing games for microwave ovens and so on. Less time for development, again, because you have one code. It uses really simple things. It's just HTML5, JavaScript, and if you use some framework, it covers a lot of issues that you don't have to deal with, because they are already solved in these frameworks. You have single code for all platforms, so if you want to support your product, you just do it in one code. You don't need to do it for iOS, for Android, and so on. Just one code. Instant bug fix. You don't have to wait for while the store will approve your application, and then you will see how it's going. You just press F5 on your computer, change one single line in your code, and you can see the results at the moment. And the technology is supported by big IT companies worldwide. As you know, Firefox OS is completely HTML5 technology. Windows 8 has its applications in HTML5, as well as Amazon and so on. And of course, except of this, if you do the game in HTML5, you can then simply wrap it into an application, and also you can distribute it in all stores. So basically, there are some tools like PhoneGap or Cocoon.js by Luday that help us to wrap the code into an application, and you just, with one single code, you can cover all these stores, and it's really great. So if you decided to do HTML5, where should you start? Of course, as I have already said, that you should use some of the frameworks that are on the market, because of course, if you have some very specific tasks, and you have to do it on your own, but I wouldn't recommend, because there are different types of frameworks, and you can choose one you like, and or you can come to us and say, hey, we want our game on HTML5, and we'll do that. So yeah, in few words, they all have a lot of documentation, a lot of information in internet. And if you are interested, you can go to HTML5 gamedev.com, and there is plenty of information about the market itself and about each of these frameworks as well. So when you start doing port of your game to HTML5, you should remember that you will face some issues. So the first one is gameplay. Not each game can be ported to HTML5 yet, because there are limitations, as I already said, of mobile phones, of the browsers. There are different browsers and their behavior when you do some kind of gestures on them. For example, some swipes wouldn't work on Android browsers, some wouldn't work for iOS. You should remember that. And when you choose gameplay, you should definitely know and just imagine how the game would be played on mobile phone, first of all, because HTML5 HTML5 is technology cross-platform, but you should aim mobile phones, of course. Just got till before the conference, and it's like a nightmare for me. So, for example, gameplays where you should zoom in, zoom out the map of the game. It would be really difficult to do in HTML5 yet, because all these zoom ins and zoom outs are like fixed gestures on some browsers, and the browser would go mad if you do that. Controls. Of course, you should remember that you just need some tab system to control your game. So if, for example, gyroscope wouldn't work well on all devices again, unfortunately. So if you want some kind of these games, you should think twice, at least for now. The technology is evolving, and soon it will, I'm pretty sure, cover most of the possible controls and so on, but still there are issues. And for example, if it is the controls with arrows up, down, and left, right, we are trying to refuse at least from the up and down controls, and just leave left and right. I will show an example later that what I mean. Graphics, UI. You should remember that if you have, for example, PC game, you have a lot of space that you can cover, and but on mobile phones it is different, and you should remember that it's really important that you have big buttons, and that they wouldn't be hidden somewhere at the bottom of the screen, for example, because in Safari on iOS 7 and 8, they have this thing that if you tap at the bottom of the screen, the browser would show the bottom panel and the URL bar. So basically the size of your game becomes twice smaller. So you should remember if you want to put some buttons at the bottom, don't do that. Place them somewhere on the left or on the right, but don't do this at the bottom of the screen, because it wouldn't work well for the user experience. Application size. You should remember that still it is browser and it is mobile phones, and if your user uses 3G connection, it is crucial that the application would be, that your game would be really small and has small size to load really quickly. So there are different tools how you can minimize the size of your application. For example, you should use definitely some graphical converters that they minimize the size of your um, images, and as well as you should do same with music, and remember that it is really each kilobyte is really crucial for the game to be loaded quickly. About 3D, yeah, everybody talks nowadays that WebGL it is future, and soon we'll all have 3D games on mobile phones. But let's be true and understand that still, for example, our company tries to cover as much devices as possible. So unfortunately, 3D would work only for few of them. It would be okay for desktop. So if you're aiming on the desktop, you can do this. But why should you use HTML5 if you're aiming on the desktops? So it is the main advantage of the technology is that it is cross-platform. So yeah, there are a lot of hopes about 3D, but still it's not the really next future that we'll meet. And test, 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 and test. The main problem of HTML5 games that it should cover most of the devices, and you should really test it on each that you are aiming. And your tester, he would go crazy, and be prepared to that. But still, if you haven't tested it in all browsers, on all devices that you're aiming, it's like nothing. If you do the game in HTML5 and then just watch it on your laptop, well, that wouldn't work. So please remember that the testing is, I guess, yeah, one of the most important parts. So did I skip? No, I didn't. So when you faced all these issues and you dealt with them, what's next? So you're aiming to the new market. You made a game, and what should you do next? How can you make money basically on this? There are different types of monetization on this market, and it's not something unique. All these systems work with other games as well. So you can sell the exclusive license and just make a big amount of money at once. For example, there are now companies that do exclusive, and our colleague Alex is sitting over there, and they do exclusive licensing for HTML5 games. Yeah, right? Yeah, as well as you can do non-exclusive. But please remember, exclusive licensing, you sell it once, and then you basically have no game anymore. Non-exclusive licensing is when you're selling the game to different publishers, to different distributors, and this is quite challenging because you have to find an amount of, I don't know, a big amount of publishers who would buy your game, and it's not quick money, but still your game would bring you money if it is a good game after 2 years, after 3 years. So we are actually still making money on the games we did 3 years ago. So this is the plus of non-exclusive licensing, that it has its tail period. Revenue share, so you give your game to the publisher, he puts advertisement there, and you share the income from that. As I already said, you can wrap the game into native application and then distribute it on the different stores. Of course, as a lot of people had talked today, that it's not that easy, and it is also challenging to reach to the stores that are overcrowded with different types of games. But still, if you know how to do it, please come on. Or you can make your own portal and try to make money on this. So become popular gaming HTML5 portal, or not just for mobile, but for desktops as well. So when you know all this, I will give you some examples on how the games are be imported. For example, this is small casual game called Dangerous Treasures. It is originally was made in Flash, and we did HTML5 version of it. And the biggest problem was that it had these controls left, right, up, and down, and it was quite challenging to do the same controls in this game as in the original one. And we decided to leave only left and right buttons, and put different types of lifters to the hero. So this one is when the hero comes to that arrows, he goes up. So basically the gameplay and the controls were a little bit changed. So when you are porting, you should remember that quite few, or I would say that really the game wouldn't be identical. It is almost impossible to do same game as you were porting, especially if you take not native application that is already optimized for mobile, but if you take PC game, you should remember it wouldn't be same. But that's why you should remember that you can make it better. So there were some issues in this game when it was on PC, and you can improve this on your mobile version, and this is a good way to start. And here is an example of porting actually from native application iOS. This game is a tower defense game. We've been showcasing it for 3 days. Today maybe some of you have seen them. Okay, I'm finishing. I can show you this after the lecture on our iPad. So this is actually the port to HTML5 of native application, and somebody didn't even believe that it is browser game, so they thought that we were showing the native one. Yeah, questions?
Thank you very much. That was very good. So, do you have questions for Olga?
So you talked about the problems with controls. Do gestures still work?
Well, I mean that swipes, for example, different types of swipes are reserved for some native things on the phone. For example, on iPhones, if you swipe down, you see the panel with the Wi-Fi and all this calendar and all this stuff. So you should remember that all these swipes are quite challenging if you want to cover the number of most devices. So be careful and try to put everything to the center. Well, not all the UI, but think about controls to do it the best way, and then test on all devices that it is really working.
So when you say put everything in a center, what does it mean?
I mean that, for example, either you should well, actually the best controls for mobile games, for HTML5 games, are tapping. So when you just tap, for example, different removers, different shooters, when ragdoll shooters, when you just tap where you wanna shoot, you're tapping by removing different things. In this tower defense, you just tap where you wanna put the tower, and you tap when you want to upgrade. So this is the best way to make the controls just not to face all these problems with swipes and so on in browser.
So swipe doesn't work at all, or
it is working, but it also depends on the device, on the browser, on the OS version.
So it's more trouble than it's worth, sounds like it.
Yeah, mostly. But still, for example, short swipes like in 2048 game type, when you're matching two same tiles. So it's quite quick swipes, and we did it, and it was pretty okay, but it didn't work on some lower devices to Android 2.3. But anyway, at some day you should just tell yourself, hey, we wouldn't support those old devices because it's impossible to support all this, because, for example, nobody supports iOS 5, for example, but there's just like I don't know, less than a percent that people who are using this. So you should remember that you're aiming most of the devices, but not all. It's impossible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another question over there. Let me get it down.
Thanks, Olga. My question is it possible to show video inside game using some kind of codec for HTML5?
As far as I know, it is not really possible right now because it wants you to switch to the player, the native player on your phone. So basically, it goes to the player from your game. So it is an issue right now. Well, actually, I haven't seen good solutions for that yet.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Olga.